Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Middle Stump with me, your host, Farouk. I'm delighted to have with us today Wasim Khan, who is the CEO of the Pakistan Cricket Board and former Warwickshire County Cricket Club player. Wasim, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome. And also, for those of you who are watching us on Facebook or YouTube, we're also joined by Link FM in Sheffield. So it's a warm welcome to our listeners in Sheffield. We hope you enjoyed the broadcast today. Wasim, how's it? You're back in England. How's the English weather treating you?
Yeah, it's been all right. It's been nice to have a bit of normality for a while. I arrived back on the 18th of July, and I head back on the 30th of this month. So just nice to be back to see family and friends again, and just have a bit of greenery around you again, and just be back. So it's nice to have a bit of a break. Haven't been back for 7 months, so it's been good.
You've obviously here because of the Pakistan team, fulfilling their touring schedule. Have you had much time around the players, or have you sort of remained out of that bubble?
Yeah, I've remained out of it. The ECB have been quite strict on who they've been allowing into that bubble. So I was given a day pass up at Old Trafford for the first day. So I went up for that for the test match. But the rest of the time now, look, I've stayed in touch with them on the phone. But that's been about as far as I've sort of got close to them. So I've left them to it, and I've been really pleased in terms of how they've performed so far.
Obviously, I want to just touch upon your current role before we sort of delve back into your past. Obviously, people want to know, whilst you've been here, have you been sort of having any discussions with the ECB about any possible reciprocal tour? I know Pakistan are due to be hosting England in 2022, but have discussions of any sort been sort of taking place formally or informally?
No, nothing as yet, mate. I mean, it's as I've said right from the beginning that England aren't due to tour until 2022. It's a congested future tours program for every country at the moment, and it's just trying to eke out a bit of space within that time to see whether there's an opportunity for a very short tour, perhaps a T20 tour. But those are conversations that I'll be having in due course with the ECB to see what might be possible.
I mean, just pre-COVID lockdown, the MCC toured Pakistan, and obviously we had Kumar Sangakkara, Ravi Bafara, Aj Mushazad, etc. in the 11. How significant a tour was that?
It was very, very significant for us. I mean, it was the first time that a white team, if you like, sort of a non-Asian, team had toured Pakistan for quite a long time. Apart from Sri Lanka and Bangladesh touring, they came, and it was fantastic. They all thoroughly enjoyed it, and obviously it was quite symbolic that with Kumar coming as well, 10 years after that bus attack, it was pretty symbolic, and it was brilliant to have the MCC there because I think it sent a really strong statement around the world.
In your current role, obviously you were appointed in December 2018 and obviously moved out to Pakistan Feb 2019. So realistically, you've probably had a good 12 months in the role before obviously COVID struck. Did it take much persuading from your point of view to get your family out there? Because obviously it is a big cultural change.
It is a cultural change. I mean, I'd only visited a number of times. I'd never lived in Pakistan myself. So even for myself, it's been 19 months now living in Lahore. But, I know when I got the job, when I was offered the job, every now and again, you do something in life that stirs your soul. And I've been very fortunate that I've had 2 or 3 roles that I've done in my life over the last 15 years that have really got to the core of who you are. And I think when I did Chance to Shine, it was very much about sort of doing something that was really passionate to me for me. And obviously getting a role like this at the PCB and going back to Pakistan to contribute during a new era, a new time under the Prime Minister of Imran Khan, change happening. There was just a real buzz about getting involved, and cricket and politics are the 2 things in Pakistan. And I'm really, really grateful and privileged to have had the opportunity to have been involved so far.
Do you feel it was almost like part of your destiny to end up in Pakistan? Because I am going to touch upon your, one of your previous visits there when your father passed away. It almost seems as if like, you're going back there. It was something that was destined, and almost is it because, your father's roots were there and you have that strong affiliation with the country, which made the acceptance of this role far much easier?
Yeah, I think so. I think we, all of us, you know yourself, you grow up in a Pakistani household where you hear stories about, cricket, and you hear stories about how your father wants to retire and, go back and live home and build a courtyard and build a house. And, these are the dreams that they have, and they live for that and they aspire for that to happen one day. So when my father died when I was 15, he was only 49 at the time. So it was a big shock. And then I went back to Pakistan really for the first time. I spent 6 weeks there. So Bimbar in Azad Kashmir is where my family background is. And so dad being buried there, it obviously gave me back. I felt that being back on Pakistan soil again, it was a real spiritual experience for me to be back and be back in the land where my father's now buried. I think it was pretty special.
Obviously, it has a very, very close connection with you, and I think it's more than just a job. It really is sort of, part of your inner soul.
It is definitely, and there's been a lot of negative stuff that's been sort of circling around whilst I've been doing this job. But do you know what? Nothing can take away from the feeling of when you do things and you get things done, you're contributing, and you're focused on trying to, you're focused it in terms of a cause. And for me, it's about how can I get Pakistan's name out there again on the world stage, highlighted up there, a professional organization that gets things done, that's moving forward. All of these things are really important for me. I've always been a Pakistan supporter. I've sat there, in the stands watching, matches taking place, finals in 2009, 2017 with my mates from Birmingham. So to then be in a seat where I can actually make a difference has just been massively inspiring for me to be involved with that.
No doubt, like the rest of us, you'll have been asked the Tebbit test on countless occasions whenever you've been watching the England-Pakistan fixtures taking place.
I have been. And it was actually a Scottish guy who once asked me, and I asked him who he supported when Scotland played England, and he went quiet. So I said, "Well, there's your answer." I think being a British Pakistani, I think, is a pretty unique position. I think that you've got the best of both. I think one thing you can never deny is your ancestry, and I think it's really, really important. When it's deep within your soul, in terms of your background and where you come from, there's always a pull to bring you back there. And I think that things have changed in Pakistan, a hell of a lot. And I think that to be over there at this stage of its evolution, I think has been a fantastic experience for me. It certainly energized me again. And knowing, you get up every single day, and when you do something that you love, it's very easy to get up and go and do that job. And for me, like I say, the last 15, 20 years, I've been very fortunate to do the things that I love.
Thank you, viewers. There's lots of questions coming in. I will take those questions towards the end of the show, and I'll put them on the screen for Wasim to answer. So do keep sending your questions in. I'm not ignoring you. I am conscious of them, but I just want to keep the chat with Wasim going, and then we will look to answer your questions towards the end of the show. Now, obviously, being the CEO of Pakistan Cricket Board is probably one of the most challenging positions in world cricket, to be honest. And historically, it's been a very, very short tenure, and for players, for officials, for administrators, really, they're often looking over their shoulder, not knowing whether they're going to be in the job tomorrow. Obviously, with that in mind, have you set yourselves some short-term and long-term targets with which you wish to sort of continue in the role?
Well, look, we've put a 5-year strategic plan together. The PCB's never had a strategic plan. You know yourself that, you've got to have a direction in life. It's the basics of any business, any life that you lead as an individual. And so we've put a very clear 5-year plan in place. We believe it's realistic and achievable in terms of the things that we want to deliver and do. So that's really important. I think that, when you start a role, I think, for me, it was never about, oh, well, how long will I last here? If the Prime Minister goes in a week's time, then that's me gone. I don't worry about those things. I genuinely don't. If that was to happen, then I think you accept it with the grace of Allah, and you believe that it was the right thing at the right time, and it will serve you in some way, further in the future. So I've never ever worried or felt vulnerable about my role. I'm staying focused on what I do. Mashallah, we've got a lot of stuff done in 18, 19 months. We're achieving all the things that we'd kind of set out, and in my own mind, I wanted to try and deliver, despite the backdrop of being quite a challenging environment. But But I've loved every minute of it, despite the ups and downs of it. And as I say, I don't worry about how long the role might last. All I know is that for however long I'm there, it's important that I actually make a difference and make things happen.
This year, obviously, we saw almost the full version of the PSL taking place on Pakistani soil for the first time. How big an achievement was that from the Pakistan Cricket Board's point of view?
It was pretty big, to be honest. I mean, it was the first time the whole of the HBL PSL came back to Pakistan. I think that, talking about bringing it back and then delivering it is another thing. I think logistically and operationally, it's a lot easier in the UAE to get those things done. There's structures, there's systems in that and help you do that. But with us, I think that because we hadn't, run multiple events on, multiple days, it was always going to be a challenge for us. But, we delivered it. Nobody really saw a lot of the pain and agony that was going on behind the scenes to try and make it happen. But, it was great learnings for all the team, to under pressure for a whole 5 or 6 weeks to make it happen, staff running around. And to be honest with you, the PCB staff deserve a huge amount of credit. The guys work their socks off and the ladies there, day and night to make that happen. And, all the world saw and everybody in Pakistan saw with this amazing spectacle. Over 500,000 fans, visited across the full venues, and we saw full houses, fantastic cricket, and and good value as well. Tickets were very, very cheap. It was important for us that we gave the population, the fans, an opportunity to watch their heroes, and that brought as much pleasure to me as sort of bringing the whole of the PSL back as a logistical operation.
Obviously, there will be concerns about staging it maybe coming February, March time due to the current COVID-19 situation. But how hopeful are you that players will visit Pakistan and will take part in the tournament if it is staged there?
Well, we've got 4 remaining matches of the PSL 5, which we're hoping to complete in November. We found a window after the IPL and before our guys leave for New Zealand on their tour where we can host. So our intent very much is to hold those matches. Obviously, all of it will be COVID dependent and the situation in Pakistan at that stage. But PSL 6, absolutely, we're planning as normal for it to take place in February. We're hoping that the situation will be a lot better. We're planning towards that. Pakistan, I think there's been about 6,000 deaths from the pandemic, a population of 220 million. Yes, there are people in villages and not all numbers are reported, but there's just a sense in Pakistan at the moment that things are sort of in control. And, that the country is sort of opening and lockdowns are opening. So we're pretty confident that, we can only plan for what happens in February. We'll keep assessing, in months leading into that to see what the situation is. If we believe it's not safe for players or the officials and the fans, then it won't take place.
Thank you. I just want to take you back to the back end of your playing career. Obviously, you finished off at Derbyshire and then you played a little bit for the Warwickshire Cricket Board. How did it feel for you leaving the first class game at a relatively young age for a professional cricketer? And obviously, what plans had you made for your life and future outside of cricket?
It's probably a cliche and you hear it from a lot of sports people, but school wasn't my thing. I think my teachers made one of the reports was, if you spend as much time concentrating on his work than talking, then, he'd probably get somewhere with his studies. And I just had a very little interest. I had an attention deficit. I'd be staring out the windows. I'd be looking elsewhere. I'd be trying to make people laugh in the classroom rather than concentrate on what I'm doing. So school wasn't my thing. And so when I became a pro cricketer, I was fortunate to be the first British-born Pakistani to become a pro cricketer in England when Warwickshire signed me in 1990. I played for Warwickshire for 7 years. I was, alhamdulillah, part of the double winning side in 95, moved to Sussex for 3 years and then played at Derby. And I'd never been to university. I had 1 A level. I think I had a grade E. And, it wasn't something that was top of my agenda. And you always think when you play cricket, you're in a bit of a cocoon and you always think cricket's going to last forever. And so I played for 10 years. Every winter I went to Australia or New Zealand to play. So, every year I was going away for 6 months at a time. And I got to the end of my career. I remember the feeling of leaving Derbyshire, packing my suitcases, and and with the back of my car and driving back to Birmingham, thinking, that's it. My cricket career is over. When you're young, you have these dreams of representing England and playing. And, for a moment in my cricketing career, the dream was close to becoming a reality in 1995 when we won the double. I averaged 49 opening the batting, and I was very close to getting on an A tour, but it never happened. And to be honest with you, people always say to me, you were unlucky because people didn't back you. And to be fair, when you reflect back on it, I wasn't good enough, and I think that sometimes you have to be honest with yourself if you want to move on in life. And I didn't want this burden on my shoulders all my life that, people coming up to me trying to make me feel better about my cricket career. So, it took me 2 or 3 years to realize that and get to the realization that had I been good enough, then I wouldn't have been dropped. Yes, I averaged 30 odd and, scored 5 first-class hundreds, and I think it was 17 or 18 50s in 50 matches. But ultimately, if I'd been good enough, I would have progressed and carried on doing it. But I just didn't. I lost my hunger a little bit towards the back end of my career, and it was time to move on. And I got to the age when I finished, I was 30, 31 years old and thinking, crikey, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? All I know is cricket. And that was when I started to write to local schools in Birmingham and saying, look, ex-player for hire, sort of thing. Can I come into your school? I'd love to coach kids, etc. So that's what I did for 2 or 3 years after I finished playing.
That must have been quite a low point in some ways, psychologically, especially for you, having been in the spotlight and having had great success with that Warwickshire double winning side of 95 and been around the greats of Lara and Donald, and then having a bag in the boot of your car, visiting local schools. You must have started to sort of self-doubt yourself and where you'd gone wrong.
Definitely. I think that, one thing I think people don't realize, and I know Aj has been on here as well, and I think, his interview is superb. And, because what people realize is that, that you are a human being. You feel vulnerable at times, you feel insecure. And when you're playing professional cricket, you go to work and, your day isn't in the spotlight of everybody else. If you go and you open the batting in front of 15,000 people, 20,000 people in a cup match or something for your county, your score is there. And, you kind of, there's an embarrassment when you don't do well. You go home and people are saying, oh, I think one thing our community has always been great at is grinding you down even more when you're not doing well, and it's always, oh, I can't believe that, more, when are you going to score some runs? When are you going to do this? So you have to put up with that. And there's a lot of mental strain that goes with that. And I think that, when the realization hits that actually you're no different. I grew up in Small Heath in inner city Birmingham. I was a boy with a dream of playing pro cricket, going on to play England. But ultimately, I was still a boy from Small Heath who grew up in the 70s and 80s, seeing all the tough times, seeing my father working in a bakery, to trying to provide for us. So, the grounding was always there. And I was always a hard worker because that's what I grew up with. But ultimately, you still have all of those things within your own head. And when I finished playing, of course, you lose a lot of self-esteem. Any professional sports person will tell you when you finish playing, the phone stops ringing. I know Aji spoke about it. People aren't as forthcoming in terms of, picking up the phone and wanting to have a chat and those things. But I think you just realize that when you're a survivor and you realize that, that things have always been hard for you, you knuckle down again and you say, okay, well, I've got to do it again, but in a slightly different way. I've got to now carve a life outside of cricket. And in administration and coaching rather than actually playing.
You touched upon the sort of the impact of the community, and I was going to sort of lead into that. Obviously, being of South Asian background and living within a predominantly South Asian community, I would suspect that would have added extra pressure because, as we all do as Asians, we're all guilty of it. We do tend to sort of, whisper here, whisper there. Oh, look at him, he's a failure, and we're quick very easily to dismiss someone.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is around judgment. I found that sadly it's just part of the human trait that I think that the better you do in life, or the perception that people have that you're doing better, actually you don't change, but people change towards you. And I think that, I heard a lot when I was still living in the community that, I changed and various other things. All that happened was I had different pressures in my life that I needed to deal with. as I said, my life was being played out in the public platform. I needed to deal with that. And, people, rather than trying to build you up, were trying to knock you down. So you became a lot more insular in terms of how you were. And people then deemed that to be more arrogant and everything else. So it was a vicious sort of circle around that. But yeah, I think that it's not just our own community. I think that in life, I found that the higher up you go in the ladder, the more people are there to knock you down. So therefore, you've got to have a real inner peace about what you're doing in life and having a focus. And I think when you believe that there's a higher purpose for what you're doing, and you're trying to achieve everything, in terms of what you're trying to achieve, I think it keeps you going during the tough times. And whether it's to become a pro cricketer, then chance to shine, changing lives of kids, going on and then, being at Pakistan and trying to change the perception of a nation globally. These are all, this is a sense of purpose in your life in terms of you're doing something that actually is going to change many lives and change the impact in the environment that you're operating. And that's always been a driver for me. Everyone has their own driver. People have their own things that motivate them. For me, it's always been, being told that I can't achieve something, or something is so way down there. How on earth are you going to get it up? How are you going to achieve? How are you going to bring it to the next level? That for me is a great challenge, and I've always loved that all my life.
I mean, you soon became involved with the Chance to Shine program and the project, and within a very short space of time, really, you became the CEO. And obviously, Chance to Shine now, as we were discussing off air, obviously, I do some work with Chance to Shine, is a fantastic national organisation that takes cricket out to the disadvantaged communities and has worked with over 4 million kids now. But in the early days, when you started out, on that Chance to Shine journey, with which you stayed for about 10 years, did you envisage it being as effective and as widespread as it is now?
I think we always had ambitious plans. So we wanted to raise £50 million when we started from scratch, reach 2.5 million children across a third of state schools, 7,000 schools. We had 1 million girls involved in our program. I think in my 9th year, we celebrated the 1,000th girl out of the 2.5 million children who'd been involved. So, but it wasn't just about numbers. It was actually the case studies and the stories that you hear. You teach in schools, you see the difference that, I have a huge amount of admiration for the likes of yourself, who could go in day in, day out, because you go into a profession like being a teacher, not because you want to become a millionaire, but because you want to help change the lives of youngsters. You want to set them on the path to where they're going to go in the future. And I think that I saw that firsthand. And we were able to do something through sport, through cricket, where our whole goal was not to find the next England cricketer, but was to actually use cricket as a way of helping kids learn, develop. I was a graduate of Chance to Shine before it even started. I was spotted in a school playground. And I remember a teacher coming to me and saying, Mr. Bolland, saying, I'm going to take you for trials at Warwickshire as an under-13s. And he said, do you know where that is? And I said, sir, I've never heard of it. And it was 1.5 miles down the road from me. So, cricket and sport is a gateway into mainstream society. It changes your world. Had I not played cricket, I wouldn't have traveled the world. I wouldn't have had the experiences that I had. And thankfully, I've been able to bring a lot of that stuff back to change the lives of young people. And I was privileged and honoured to have been involved in Chance to Shine.
I mean, you started off playing street cricket with your mates, on the local streets, etc., where you were. Was that a big driver for you in getting cricket out there to those communities and sort of spreading the benefit of it, because you had physically and personally been there, seen it, done it yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I think when I first started and got involved in Chance to Shine, it was very much about, I kind of knew I had this really innate sort of strong feeling within myself that if cricket and my experiences and giving kids those opportunities could have half the impact on the lives of some of these young kids and help them to get out, see the world, develop, teamwork, leadership, understanding how to win and lose, all the things that you need in life. It was going to be success for me. So I measured success in that particular way. I remember speaking to a lot of kids when I was growing up, but when I finished playing and coaching them, speak to parents or speak to kids. And there's two questions or two things that parents would always say to me. One was, which cricket club can I go to that isn't racist? And I used to say any cricket club, because actually individuals make up cricket clubs, not those institutions themselves. So you're going to get one or two bad people everywhere. We have subconscious views about other people, other colors, other gender. We have our own views about people from around the world. So we're actually quite blinkered in the way that we look at things. So I used to say, well, actually just open your horizons and look to adapt into the environment you go into. Learn from it rather than asking them to come to you and change their ways. You're the minority. Go in, learn from the experience. And I say to the parents, please take the kids, take them to an all-white club, because those kids will learn about life. They'll learn to fend for themselves. All the important life lessons they'll get will only hold them in good stead moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely endorse that point. Your last point you're making there. I almost see cricket as through my coaching roles, and just to touch upon that, as a form of dawah. Whereby, if as an Asian Muslim, I'm involved in a non-Asian environment, I'm educating those people about my faith, about my culture, about our value. And I think cricket has a far bigger role to play in society than just a game itself.
Definitely. Look, it's a gateway into mainstream society. So by that I mean that what it does do. Cricket crosses all divides. So suddenly you're playing against, whilst you might be an all Asian team, suddenly you're playing in a street competition, and you're playing against kids from other cities. White kids, black kids, Indian kids. This is about learning to integrate, learning to understand, respecting people for their ability, respecting people for who they are. And these are the important life lessons that hold you in good stead moving forward. And I always used to say, when I ran the workshops with the kids, sitting on the ground and chatting to them, and they used to ask about my experiences. And I used to say, look, guys, it's a horrible world out there. You will get knocked back 9 times out of 10, but you've got to get up and you've got to fight the next one. If you stand there and say, oh, it was because of racism I didn't get a chance, it's a ready-made excuse for kids not to actually go out there and try again. And this is my point to a lot of the kids in the inner city areas, is that racism does exist, prejudice exists. So what are you going to do about it? The only way you can do it and get on in life is you find a way through it. You use your nous, use your intelligence, your emotional intelligence to find a way through it. There's a pathway for everybody. Everybody's good at something. You just got to find out what you're good at.
I mean, that's a very pertinent point that you made, particularly in light of the current Black Lives Matter movement that's obviously had a lot of media attention. I'm sure you'll have seen it, even though you've been in Pakistan. All too often, we tend to sort of play the race card and sort of sit back down and wait for someone to give us a helping hand up. And in life, you don't always get that opportunity. You've got to get yourself up and crack on.
Yeah, and it's important, and it's not just about self, but it's also about service. So getting yourself up, but also what can I be doing to help others? And I think that we are very self-serving as communities. We don't. It's always about, well, what can I get out of this before I do something for someone else? Actually, it is about the greatest joy. Why do we give zakat during Eid? During Rosette, we give it. Why do we give money at Eid? Because it brings joy. It's good to give as much as as much as you get. And I think that for 11 months of the year we forget that. This is a mindset, and so if you take that same mindset into work that you do, so social workers, teachers, they go into it because it's about what you can give and what you can impart in terms of your knowledge and experience to help young kids and help their lives and help them for the future. And I think if we did that more as a community and as societies, a lot more will be get done. And once you open your heart to that, it's incredible how much comes to you. The more I found, the more I've tried to do from a selfless point of view, the more that's come back to me. Allah works in mysterious ways.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely agree with everything that you've said there. I just want to take you on with your sort of administrative journey. After almost 10 years at Chance to Shine, you decided to sort of move on to pastures new and become the CEO of Leicestershire County Cricket Club. Did you feel that basically you'd taken Chance to Shine as far as you could, or were you sort of wanting a new challenge? Because obviously, the idea of being in charge of a county cricket club in a large South Asian community really sort of gave you that goosebumps.
Look, it was an opportunity for me. I'd been a Chance to Shine, as you say, for 9 years. I think that there comes a stage where actually Chance to Shine is no longer, an organization is no longer benefiting from you because your ideas go, you're hanging on, you're doing the same thing year after year. And actually, after 5 years potentially, you need to move on, because the organization as well as yourself needs a fresh challenge, because you get stuck in your ways, etc. But Leicestershire came along. I owe a huge amount of gratitude to Leicestershire County Cricket Club for giving me that opportunity after I finished a chance to shine. Don't get me wrong, it's a tough gig. When you're in a non-test match ground in county cricket, it's hard work. I inherited a club that had £1 million worth of losses. The last 20 years had been difficult financially for the club. First 3 years we had we made a net profit. The fourth year didn't go as well. And that's one regret that I have, having left Leicestershire, was that, that could have been better. But, ultimately, in terms of where I found the club and where I moved on, there's a huge amount of positives that I took with me in a very tough and very difficult environment where we hadn't won on the field for many, many years. 4 or 5 years prior to me arriving, we hadn't been winning on the field. So, it gave me an opportunity. But I did my master's. I did an MBA at Warwick Business School at the ripe old age of 41. I thought maybe I might try academia at that age, and I did that, and then that gave me the impetus to move on also from chance to shine, and move on to Leicestershire and do 4 years there before this opportunity came around.
I mean, as I've said, obviously there's a large South Asian community, in Leicestershire. Do you feel that you were able to fully engage and get them involved and interested and really sort of fired up about county cricket? Or was it one of those battles that eventually you had said, you know what, I'm not going to win this one, I'm just going to have to walk away from it?
Look, I've always said, and even when I finished playing cricket, and it's nothing new, that if you want the South Asian community to get involved in cricket, you need to take steps towards them, and positive steps towards them. You can't say that, South Asians are passionate about the game. Oh, there's lots of businessmen and businesswomen in the communities, and they'll give money, and they're not giving money. Why aren't they giving money? Because they love cricket. So if you don't see a representation on the field of their own people and doing more in the communities to engage with them. Unfortunately, when I went to Leicester, and I think other counties have found the same at Warwickshire and others, is that if you don't do enough over a period of time, it's harder to grab that back, because trust is one of those things you build up over time. You don't change a landscape in 3 or 4 years. That's a 10, 15-year project of constantly getting things done, doing things. If it was easy within cricket, there wouldn't be a South Asian strategy. There's a South Asian strategy for a reason. What does success look like? Well, success is having no South Asian strategy. Fundamentally, having that now means that there's still a lot of work for the game to do, to engage, to build trust. And you only build trust by giving opportunities to the communities in important roles within cricket clubs. It's not just about on the field and seeing more Asian coaches or black coaches or seeing more black or Asian cricketers on the field. It's actually about putting people in positions of influence. I got the opportunity in a position of influence. There's a female chair now at Leicestershire, the first one of its kind within county cricket. So things are changing. But I was the only black or South Asian CEO across any professional sporting club in this country. And that tells you a hell of a lot, that there's still a huge amount of work that we need to do. Administration is where you influence and you make things happen. And I try and encourage as many people as possible to say, use your business skills, use your understanding about cricket. Don't just go towards a coaching route, but look at how you can move into administration and really influence.
Obviously, you spent a lot of time at Chance to Shine, and obviously the 4 or 5 years at Leicester County Cricket Club. What lessons did you take from those two positions in particular with you towards the current role that you're in now?
I think it battle hardened you quite a lot. I think I had no formal training, having started as an ops director at Chance to Shine. I'd never been to university. I'd never had any formal management training. Suddenly, I was thrust into a CEO position. So I never forget my first meeting with the former governor of the Bank of England, Mervyn King, who set up Chance to Shine. And he invited me to the Bank of England for a meeting. And he said to me, right, we'd like you to come on board. We're hearing great things about you. This is really something that's in your DNA. So we'd like you to get on board. We'd like you to go away and write a business plan. So I'd never written a business plan in my life. So I went on, I got back home, got onto Google, how to write a business plan. And that's what I did. And that's how I learned. And so everything I've learned has been self-taught. As I've moved higher and higher up, I've watched, I've learned, and I've kept a growth mindset. For me, it's always been about, leave your ego at the door, because if you have an ego, you're never going to learn and get better. So for me, I always operated that way, and I've absorbed things, and I've seen good people operate, good leaders, and I've tried to take as much of that and then bring it into how I operate.
I suppose you've got a great role model as a leader with Imran Khan there to obviously, pick things up from, and being very, very determined individual who's sort of gone through trials and tribulations personally and professionally.
Yeah, look, it took him 20 odd years to get to where he got to. But, you ask him now and he'll say, I never had any doubt that I would one day become prime minister. So, that isn't arrogant. That's just a belief in a cause, and a belief that, you'll get the opportunity one day to do good for your nation and by your nation. So, there's a huge amount you can learn from that. 21 years. I think he got one seat many, many years ago when the elections happened, and then again as well, a low number. Many people would have jacked it in and said, you know what, that's enough, I'll go off and do something else in life. But, resilience and resolve are the two things that you need to have in life. And I think that, watching how he operated can only inspire you to kind of think, well, actually, your issues and challenges are probably far smaller, albeit different to somebody who's facing it at a national level.
I suppose he's still fighting like that cornered tiger that he referred to in the 1992 World Cup final.
Yeah, look, that's always been a trait of Pakistanis, right? Is that, we were known for it in the 90s, with the great teams that we had, was that we never gave up. And I remember speaking to players from around the world at that time, and they're saying, God, what is it with the Pakistan team? They never give up. They never believe they're beaten. And I think that, Imran instilled a lot of that into those guys during that period of time. And it's a trait of the nation. I think that, we're strong, we're resilient as a nation because we've had to be, and we'll always tackle everything head on, and we'll never take a backward step with anything.
I just want to go back to your childhood years, obviously growing up in a largely Pakistani community in Small Heath. Would you say that was an advantage or a disadvantage in terms of your cricket development journey?
I would never have changed it for the world. I think that, I was fortunate to grow up where I grew up, because I learned the harsh lessons in life. I had no easy, my parents never used to take me to cricket and, take my bag out of the back of the Range Rover, and help me and carry it in for me. I had to catch 3 buses as a 14-year-old. It took me an hour and a half to get to Smethwick Cricket Club in the Birmingham League. And I did that myself, but that was a learning process for me, a journey. For me, you'd run to the bus stop and you'd do that. As an under 13s boy, I was the only state school boy at the Warwickshire Winter Nets. All the rest were public school boys. Parents would bring them there. I caught 3 buses. But look, I don't look back at that and have pity for myself. That was fantastic for me. I enjoyed everything that I did, all my experiences as a youngster, the hardships we went through, the things I had to learn the hard way. I was really mischievous as a youngster. Always got in trouble by my dad for fighting with my sister, and but it was the way that I was. I was quite a naughty child, but I learned a lot from the growing up on the streets. And a lot of people will tell you stories, people in their 40s and 50s, about the days of the summer holidays. You go out 8 in the morning, you come back 8 at night, to eat, but you'd spend all days apple scrumping. You'll go out playing with your mates, doing all sorts of stuff, getting into scraps. I was no different, because that's what I knew and that's how I grew up. But it's helped me, and I believe that through hardship, a lot of hardship, there is ease at the end. And I think that sometimes going through the tough battles in life make you appreciate what you have more and value things more. And when you value things more, you want it more, and you want to keep it, and you want to do more. So it's that sort of perpetual sort of feeling that I always have in my head, and it's ingrained within my DNA.
Having read your autobiography, Brimful of Passion, we'll come on to the title of that in a little while. It's quite clear that obviously growing up was a very, very, very fun time for you. And as you alluded to, you were quite mischievous and got into scraps and so on. But you certainly had a camaraderie with the people. You mentioned certain names of Amjad being one of them, and other boys. You were a very, very tight unit.
We were a tight unit, and to be honest with you, there was 3 or 4 of us who just loved the game and loved playing cricket. And I think that's what helped us, because our focus wasn't hanging around on street corners, or being at school and getting qualifications wasn't the be all and end all for us. At the age of 13, I knew I wanted to be a pro cricketer. And, people would say to me, yeah, but it's not for people like us. There's no British Pakistanis playing anywhere. You got no chance. But I never genuinely believed that I wouldn't make it. And I think that, growing up with those guys, we all were competitive. We all helped each other. And both Pervez Mirza, who passed away sadly back in 95, he played for Worcestershire. Amjad played for Worcestershire. Within a 3.5 mile radius, we've produced 17 professional cricketers over a 20-year period with no facilities. So that just tells you, that there is a bit of a Pied Piper effect, with youngsters seeing that others have done it, and therefore if they've done it, I can do it. And it's brilliant because I think that every Asian child now has got an opportunity to live their dream and become a pro cricketer.
I mean, one of the stories from your childhood that really, really resonated with me and showed your determination and your resilience was the 1992 escapade when you tried to get into Edgbaston to watch Pakistan play against England. You were going to get into that test match and watch it no matter what.
Yeah, look, we did a bit of this is how strategic I was. Then we did a recce the day before. And there was a little, a small stream that ran along the side of something called the Raglan stand at Edgbaston. And there was a huge fence, but you had to climb up some bricks to get to the fence. So the day before, there was 3-4 of us, and we actually broke a couple of the planks and just pushed them to one side like this. And then we pushed them back, and we saw, okay, well, this is where we're going to come back tomorrow, and this is where we go in. And we did that the following day. So when a wicket fell and a huge cheer went up, I legged it straight into the ground. And in those days, there were no tickets, there were all wooden seats. So ran straight into the Pakistan end where all the supporters were and just joined in with the celebrations. And we did that for the first 3 days of the test. And I remember the day I became a pro cricketer at Warwickshire, and we had to jog around the ground on the outskirts of the ground. And I remember looking over, and there was 2 planks of wood, which were a different color to everything else. Everything else was dark brown, and these were 2 light brown planks. And I remember looking at that, thinking that, standing there in 1982, watching Imran Khan and the guys, running in and bowling, and the Pakistan flag, that actually, a number of years later, sort of, what was it, 8 years later, I was going to be walking out at Edgbaston and playing for Warwickshire. It's just the stuff that dreams are made of. I never ever thought that would happen, but it did. And it was an amazing experience.
Perhaps you could go back and fix a plaque onto those 2 planks of wood, placed here by Wasim and friends. Thanks for the many happy memories.
Yeah, Waz and boys were here. That's what I might put on there, and just draw it in with a felted pen.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched upon Peter Boland already, obviously, but he was very, very instrumental in you getting to where you got to in your cricketing journey, and he discovered you just on the playground on a normal sort of school day.
Yeah, he was a huge cricket fan. So he'd look down and stand there in the playground. And I remember all of us wanting to impress him because we knew that was Mr. Boland, and he played club cricket for Smethwick. And crikey, if he saw me, he might want to take me. So, my job was to bat for the whole of the break time, the whole of the lunch time, and at least for an hour after school. And for a whole sort of break time and a lunch time, he stood there. Then after school, and he came to me at the end of the school day, I think it was. And he said to me, I've been watching you all day and you haven't got out. Where did you learn your cricket? And I said, just watching it on TV, sir. And he said, right, I want to take you to Edgbaston, to Warwickshire. Tell your parents on Thursday that I'll drop you off back home. So, he had a little mini, and he got me some whites, and he ran me up there, and he said, look, for the first 2 weeks, I'm going to take you. But the next week, he said, the day before you're due to go on the Thursday, on the Wednesday, I'm going to take you on the bus route. So where to get off and what buses to take. And then he took me to Smethwick to play club cricket. He took all of the Asian boys from the school or the area, Parvez, Amjad, a few of the others. And he was about 6-7 of us there. And he used to ferry us, pick us up on a Saturday, take us there, bring us back, all of those things. And, you look back in life and, there's 2 or 3 significant people in your life at a various time that gave you the opportunity that God brought into your pathway to take you down a certain journey. And for me, it was him. Had it not been for him and his commitment and dedication at a very young age, I don't think I would have got to where I got to. and not particularly, and especially not become a pro cricketer.
As I say, they don't make him like that anymore. And obviously, you were very, very fortunate to have benefited from his passion.
Yeah, absolutely. And he had a passion, and he just didn't look at anything else apart from you could play cricket. And he took me, and he used to speak to me on the way, on the journey, teach me about life, and teach me. I remember when I got selected for a sort of a camp at the under-16s at Lillyshaw in Telford, and it was an England under-16s thing, and I'd never used a knife and fork before. And he taught me at school one break time in his office. He said, look, just come in while no one else is watching, and I'll show you what you need to do. So that was the sort of etiquette that they're the sort of coaching and the life lessons that you carry forward with you, and just sharpen you and hone you in, and give you confidence. Because I was feeling very, very vulnerable, and going into that environment with all these under-16s lads in an alien environment. But he brought it all back, and taught me the things, and said, look, hold on to these things because they're going to help you in life.
I believe he wasn't backward at coming forward, and if you needed a clip round the ear, or if you needed to be put in your place, he put you in your place in no uncertain terms.
He did. I remember when I first started at Smethwick, I batted 9 in the third team. And I remember one day, back 3 weeks in a row, and I only got to bat twice in 3 innings. And I remember in the bus back, and all the lads were sitting in a minibus. And he said, oh, how was your day today? Because he played for the seconds, I played for the thirds. I said, oh, it'd be a lot better if I got an opportunity to bat. And he went absolutely ballistic. He said, you know what? It was 7 years before I actually worked my way up the order. And he said, nothing gets gifted to you in life. Work your way up. And when you do get an opportunity batting at 9, he said, make sure you score some runs and get yourself up the order. Nothing's going to be given to you. So, those are the sort of harsh things that he instilled in me, that you need to work for everything in life, and nothing's going to get given to you.
I think there are traits, unfortunately, that are forgotten in the current climate, and with the youth coming through. But there's there's every sort of opportunity that can be provided for those messages to be articulated than it should be.
Absolutely, and the key messages for all of us with kids, it's important that we want to give them everything, because we have this innate thing that we want to give them the things that we didn't have. We want to make their life easy. We don't want them to fall over. We don't want them to hurt themselves. But actually, this is all part of life. And I think that sometimes we wrap them in cotton wool because of the way the world is. But certainly in terms of growing up and giving them everything, I think that I've always believed in value in everything. And I think that the more you give them, the less they value things. And it's a lot easier for them to expect that this is what life's going to give me. I'm always going to get things. So you've got to be very careful about what you give, and be strong about what you don't give, just as importantly, so that they can learn that not everything comes easy to you in life.
Your father, obviously, he sadly passed away when you were 15 years old, as you've already mentioned. And obviously, he may not have been the one that took you to these cricket matches or got you these bats and so on, but he was very, very supportive just behind the scenes, and was obviously very, very much in favour of you doing what you were doing, rather than pushing you towards an academic career.
Yeah, definitely. My father was a greater influence than most people would want to recognize. And I think it only took me a number of years to realize that just allowing me to do what I wanted to do around playing cricket, and his classic words were, Shonka, let him do it, because, it's a hobby. He'll grow out of it. He's like all of these kids. So when he could take me, he'd take me. But, he didn't have a great interest in cricket, but, he just wanted me to do the things that I wanted to do. And, that set me on the path, because indirectly I was getting, even the fact that he wasn't openly encouraging me, because he probably didn't know how to, but the very fact that he would allow me to do and have the freedom to do the things that I wanted to do and go and play cricket, set me on the way, and gave me that opportunity from a very young age.
I mean, within 24 hours of your father passing away, you were in Pakistan, burying him in the village, as you alluded to. And that first experience of Pakistan, which you describe in great detail in your autobiography, certainly seems to have been a very, very positive experience, and which has led you to the journey and to the destination that you're at now.
Yeah, it was obviously a very difficult time. Your father's healthy and everything 1 minute, and the next minute he's gone. an early age of 49, and I was, like, say, 15. My sister was 17. We were lucky because all of my uncles lived nearby, and various others, so we had a support network. But I remember it was tough to get through because, particularly in the Asian households, they ask you to grow up very quickly. You're now the man of the house, and I was 15 years old. And I remember when I went to Pakistan and we were there for 6 weeks, it was a really tough journey because you had people around you constantly. And it's the first time I'd been back for a very long time since I was a young kid. And so, it always lives with you. And, burying your father, I mean, it's an emotional experience, burying anybody close to you. And I think at the age of 15, it was tough because you're trying to understand what's happened and why it's happened, and, why it's happened to you. And so you go through all of those emotions. And I remember when my father actually passed, and I remember running out onto the streets, as a 15-year-old, because it was, you didn't really realize what was going on. And so, all these emotions go through you, and, it was tough. But, you fight through it. At the age of 19, I got a contract, and I remember feeling really guilty going to Australia because I was leaving my mum and my sister behind. Uncle saying, well, why are you going? And, all this sort of stuff, because even then they didn't recognize sport as a career. They was like, well, what are you doing? Playing cricket. You can't earn a living from that, because it was still a taboo subject. Nobody saw sport as a career. It was just a hobby that you did, even when I had a contract with Warwickshire. So it took a long time for them to understand what I was actually doing, and the fact that I was earning money out of it, and I was earning a living out of it.
In the early days, when you were on a professional contract at Warwickshire, how difficult was it for you to break into that first team? Because you were scoring hatfuls of runs in the second team at the outgrounds, but forcing your way into that, which was a pretty phenomenal first 11, was quite a challenge. And perhaps you would have got into most other counties' first 11s, but you decided to stay put at Warwickshire.
Yeah, I did, because Warwickshire was always my home. I mean, the year I got a contract at the age of 19, I think I scored 1700s across all cricket. I scored over 3,000 runs that summer. Whether it was England in the 19s, I think I got 4 out of 500s in 400s in 5 innings for Warwickshire under 19s. And it was just every time I played, I just knew my currency was scoring runs to get me the opportunity. And I did a similar thing when I was on the staff, had a contract. But I always knew that, it was my home, and Warwickshire was where I wanted to be. It's like, no disrespect, but you're kind of going from a Premier League team to, a team at the bottom of the Championship, moving anywhere else, because it just seemed like I was going to go somewhere which wasn't never going to be as great as being at Warwickshire. So you bide your time. Brian Lara came in 94, they won the treble. And then I really got my opportunity through chance in 95. I scored 150 in a second 11 game the day before against Northamptonshire. Turned up the following day for training, second 11 practice. And at about 10:15, Nick Knight had hurt his back. So I got told that you need to shift your gear and go over to the main dressing room because you're playing. I was playing against Surrey, where Alex Stewart, Thorpe and Butcher and all these guys were playing. And it was my debut. And my second match, I got 19 and 25 on my debut. My second game was against Wasim Khan against Lancashire. And, bearing in mind, in 1987, I stood on the terraces at Edgbaston with Wasim Khan as my number one on my T-shirt, because I was a Pakistani fan, because I just love this new guy who'd come on board. And suddenly I'm facing him in a match, my second 11 game at Old Trafford. But, I was fortunate. I scored some runs. I think I got 38 and 78 in the match. But it was just an incredible experience. I was living the dream. I'd got in, I was playing, and what mattered for me, it was my opportunity. And I knew this opportunity may not come again. And I managed to make the most of it. And, as part of a double breaking, double winning side. And, I thank God that I had the opportunity and I was able to live the dream for a year.
I mean, Wasim Khan obviously thinks very highly of you as a person, because he wrote the foreword to your book. And obviously, with regards to your book and the title that I mentioned before, Brimful of Passion, would you say that the title has been specifically chosen because it's very reflective of your character?
A little bit, but also there was some people, some of the listeners will know, there was a band called Corner Shop who sang Brimful of Asher. This was back at the time in the early 2000s, and it was a band called Corner Shop. I think they were made up of some Asian lads. And I remember somebody did an article on me and they called it Brimful of Passion. And then when I wrote it, and I thought, people kept saying, "What a great title," and they're playing on the words. So I remember thinking to myself that actually, I wrote to them. I said, "Look, do you mind if I use your title?" And they said, "No, by all means, go for it." So I went with the title. So I hope that it encompassed who I was and the things that I was doing in my life, but also it was a bit of a play on words as well of the corner shop band.
Well, Sim, it's been an absolute pleasure talking about your journey as an administrator and as a player. Just going to sort of change tact a little bit, and I'm going to go on to some of the questions that we've got. They're coming in their droves, otherwise we could be here all night at this rate. I'm just going to put a few questions up on screen, so if you want to sort of answer them at your own will, please feel free. Okay. When will we realistically start seeing the big cricketing nations tour Pakistan?
Yeah, Rizwan, we've got South Africa due to tour in January. Fingers crossed, everything is planned for them to come play 2 test matches and 3 T20s, which is part of the schedule that we've already got in place. So obviously, COVID dependent, nothing will change. We're hoping to welcome South Africa to Pakistan in January.
Thank you. Next one is from Mo. He wants to know if you've got any sort of an update on the interim committees for the 6 cricket associations, and if not, when will it be announced?
Yeah, look, we're very close to announcing those interim committees. We've been registering the 6 cricket associations, but most people who know about Pakistan and live in Pakistan know the bureaucracy and the time it takes. But those interim committees are what the chairman is putting together, and those committees will be in place very, very soon. But the important thing is it's not stopping the activities. So, the new structure, the new system that was put in place, the vision that the Prime Minister had, which we were asked to implement, that has already started last year. So nothing is going to stop the activities taking place.
Khalil's asking about the current Pakistan team and how do you rate the progress that they're making? Obviously, it is a rebuilding process taking place, having lost a lot of senior players over the last couple of years.
Yeah, look, it's never easy when you use the likes of Misbah, you lose the likes of Yunus Khan, Muhammad Yusuf. These kinds of guys you don't find around every street corner. These guys have been absolute heroes of the Pakistan game. We won the series against Sri Lanka. We won against Bangladesh. Our guys hadn't played for 5 months leading into this test series against England. And look, you saw how they performed at Old Trafford. This team will only get better. We've got a nucleus of about 4 or 5 guys who are aged between 17 and 21. These guys will now develop. We've set up a high performance system that will change the landscape of Pakistan cricket in years to come. And let's not forget, this isn't about success tomorrow. We have to create sustainable success. We've been sitting 7th in Test cricket over the last couple of years for a reason, last 2 or 3 years, and we've sat 6th in ODI cricket. That reflects where we've come from. So in order to overhaul that and change it, you need to make tough decisions, and we're moving in the right direction. Just have patience, and we will get there.
Mohammed Azama is asking about the high performance centres. Is an indication as to when they're likely to be built for the 6 cricket associations?
Yeah, look, we've got some already set up like Karachi, Lahore, Multan, and the others. We're going to be running high performance programs from those cricket grounds and using indoor facilities. So, the centres will be built. Everything is now moving. We've got Sakleen Mushtaq now, who's now head of our international player development. We've got Nadeem Khan, who's been involved in departmental cricket and has been involved in domestic cricket for a long time. These guys are now driving a high performance. So everything will fall in place. I know it's taken a little bit longer than what we expected, but we are moving in that direction and things will fall in place.
Akil's asking about any possible increase to the number of domestic teams. Obviously, 6 seems to be the number that you've chosen. I watched the interview that you recently had with regards to Imran Khan and your choices and Imran Khan's choices. He's saying that it's 6 too few for a population of 220 million.
Look, it's under the 6 teams, we've got a second 11 and also 90 cities. So we've got city cricket associations housing 90 cities. We've just put club constitutions in place now. Look, it is what it is. What my views are and what the vision is of others, we have to align. I think ultimately, you're never going to agree on everything. But I think now we've decided to take a certain course. Who knows in the future? Just as we may well increase the PSL teams, more likely, that could happen in years to come. But right now, we've got the 6 teams. The important thing is now we get those committees up and running, the associations up and running and functional, because Pakistan is still the only country in the world which is centralized everything and runs everything. That shouldn't be happening. We have to decentralize and give ownership to the 6 regions, and that's what our plans are over the coming months.
We've got some good wishes from Cookie Patel, who you may recall from your days in county cricket and involvement with the ECB. Cookie wishes you all the very best, and he says, "Go well, mate."
Thanks, Cookie. Good man.
And we've got another question about the current Pakistan side from Tim Fee. And Tim Fee's asking us, do you envisage any changes for the third test? Do you think Shadab may be back in the squad again or in the starting 11?
Look, it's difficult to know. Fawad Alam's waited 10 years for an opportunity. It's tough to know. Look, I don't get involved in the selections. I try and stay out of there. I speak to Misbah a lot, speak to the coaches. We set up, we brought over a really good, strong support team with Mushtaq Ahmed and Yunus Khan, because these guys have been and operated and worked in English conditions. They've got track records here. It was important if our players were going to spend 6 weeks in a biosecure bubble, 8 weeks, it was important we kept everybody together. So, I leave it to them. It's their decisions. They're accountable, and the ownership belongs very much with them.
There are obviously mixed views as to the chief selector also being sort of the head coach. Where do you sit on that one?
Look, it's a tough one because it comes down to options that you have available. At that stage, we felt that, we had very limited options, but to combine that particular role. And I can promise you that wasn't taken lightly. Only I know the things that we had to go through in order to try and get the chief selector role covered. Misbah obviously in 2010 had lifted Pakistan cricket from where it was following the match fixing scandal and the spot fixing scandal. Took us number 1 in the world, clearly had a lot of leadership qualities. It was important, after the really, good job that Mickey did and others, that, we went down the route of developing our own people. In an ideal world, would you want a chief selector to also be a head coach? No. Did we have many options on the table? No. And so therefore, we saw the model that worked in New Zealand. They've combined both roles. The 6 head coaches of the 6 cricket associations are also selectors. So they work closely with Misbah in terms of looking at local and domestic players. They're part of the selection panel for selecting squads. So, we've had to make do in terms of the best that we could do with the circumstances we found ourselves in. And like I say, only I know the circumstances we found ourselves in.
Arman Zia wants to ask, what's been your toughest challenge as Pakistan CEO?
Very easy, the media. Look, it's been really tough, and I think that I think the constant character assassinations from certain sections of the media, and I don't say all of them, a number of them have been great and they've been fair, but I think that when you have that on a day-to-day basis, there's 2 cricket talk shows on every day. Cricket and politics are the only 2 things that the country's interested in. I think it becomes hard, particularly when they still view you as a British Pakistani. There's a tweet recently which called me an import from a renowned journalist, which, it's still hard 18, 19 months on. But as I said, I try and stay focused on what I'm doing, because if you don't, you can get caught up in all of that noise and really take it to heart. So, it's been tough. It's been relentless at times. But I think that, you just shrug your shoulders, you deal with it, and you stay strong through all of that adversity.
I mean, in connection with that question that's on screen at the moment, I just want to take you to a quote from George Dobell off Cricket Info, and he refers to you as a highly personable, articulate, and effective leader, and someone who is media savvy. So, having all these attributes, the question I would ask you is obviously, as an outsider going into a particularly sort of a hotbed environment, how do you win the hearts and minds of the PCB and the public who have been starved of cricket for so long?
I think you have to. I don't think you get a lot of time. So there's being a semi-government organization, there's a lot of bureaucracy around the PCB, and sometimes it's hard to get things done. You might have factions who are working against you, people who just don't want to see change. And, nobody wants to see change, but inevitably where people have been comfortable for a very long time, and, you've got individuals who don't really care about moving Pakistan cricket forward. They want a job for the next 20 years. They'll do whatever it takes to keep that job and get people out of the way. I think you have to be absolutely clear about what you expect and what you want. And you have to be willing to make tough decisions. 4 or 5, 6 people left who'd been there for quite a long time. And I think that until you make those tough decisions and you show people you mean business, it's very hard for people to take you seriously, because I knew I didn't have a lot of time. There were wins that I needed to get under my belt. Getting international cricket back after 10 years, getting the PSL back, the 5-year strategy, the MCC coming over, having the CEOs of England, Australia, Ireland coming to visit. There's a number of things that, we needed to do and get things done quickly. And I think that hopefully the majority of the fans now, I kind of can see that, what I'm doing is I'm doing it with a clean heart. I've got no agendas. I've got no baggage, because I don't have to please anybody. I'm trying to do what's best for Pakistan cricket. Some will like it, some won't, but I can't please everybody. But I've got to stay focused on what I'm there to do.
Absolutely. It's great to see that you've been impartial and you've got a job to do. And at times you're going to have to be very, very thick-skinned and wear that metal jacket on your back. And obviously there'll be a lot of knives to pull out of your back from wherever you go.
Well, there's knives everywhere. I'm pulling them out of my legs at the moment in all sorts of places. But look, I think you just have to understand that, a lot of people have said to me, how on earth have you coped with all of this? How are you still going after this period of time, in terms of based on what you've had to put up with? And I said that because when I was growing up, I always did things that stirred my soul. I always had stuff that I was doing that I was passionate about, and I had a purpose for. When I went to Pakistan, left my family, left everybody here, 18, 19 months ago, went into an environment I've never lived in before. I knew that, I was pretty much on my own for quite a long period of time, because people over there just look out for themselves. Nobody will stand up for you when the media are going at you. Nobody's going to stand up and say, do you know what, that's unacceptable, that's wrong, because everybody's scared that the media is going to turn on them. So, that's how it operates, and that's fine. And I understand that. So that, I say it as it is, and I don't think people like that. I don't suck up to people who are vilifying me in the media, and the following day they want an interview. I don't work that way. I say, you stick to what you're doing, I'll stick to what I'm doing, and be true to yourself.
Every credit to you, man out of my own heart. We've got some more positive comments towards you from Mohammed Osama. I'll just stick that one up there. And he respects the work that you've done for the betterment of Pakistan cricket, and feels that no other chairman of CA has made as much of an impact as you have for Pakistan. May Allah bless you, Wasim.
Thank you, Osama. I'll make sure that check gets off to you later.
Absolutely. And here's from a fellow Bimbury, Khalil Rahman. He's congratulating you on the great job that you're doing.
Thank you, Khalil. Trying to do my best. As I say, some things will work, some won't, but I won't die not making decisions. So I'm trying to do my best. Alhamdulillah, and just need your du'as.
Inshallah, inshallah. And Mohammed Osama is asking about the future goals for the PCB, domestically, internationally, and commercially.
In a nutshell, commercially, starting with that, the PCB, about 80% of the income of the PCB has relied on ICC funding and broadcasting revenue. For the first time now, we've actually got a commercial strategy in place where we're trying to sell sponsorship of domestic cricket, ground naming rights, the whole shebang. So we've actually got a good commercial program in place, and we're out there selling at the moment. In terms of domestic and international, we've put a 5-year strategic plan together. Please have a look at it if you get an opportunity. It's very simple. I've put it together. We've got 6 pillars, which includes women's cricket as well. And we've really changed the landscape of women's cricket in Pakistan since I've been there. All the women now who play domestic cricket get paid. The girls fly business class like the men. We've increased their central contracts. We've got an all women's selection panel now. So all those important things that needed to be done are now getting done. It's only a small step, but we've got a long way to go. But please do have a look at the 5-year plan that we released about a month and a half ago.
You've kind of answered Ruxar's question there with regards to women's cricket. I hope that gives you lots of information, Ruxar, about what Wasim and his team are doing to improve the situation for women's cricket. I've got a question from Khalil Rahman here again. He's asking about your experiences of county cricket coming up against Waqar and Wasim.
Yeah, I played against Mushtaq Ahmed was playing as well. I also had to face Courtney Walsh and Curtly Ambrose, and those were the days when every county had a high-quality international cricketer who was available for 6 months of the year and didn't have international commitment. So, it was incredible experience playing against those guys, and world class, and us mere mortals who were playing county cricket. I managed to do okay against them, but it was always hard work, and you could see why they were world beaters in what they did.
We've got a question here. They're coming in thick and fast. I'm trying to whiz through as many as I can.
That's
From
fine.
Scott here. Pakistan have honoured us with a tour here in horrific, frightening circumstances. Shouldn't the ECB start to plan a return tour to Pakistan as soon as possible? We touched on this kind of at the start of the show.
Yeah, look, it's about finding a gap in the calendar to actually do that. So look, ECB are very, very keen to come to Pakistan as well, and those conversations will be had. We are looking for opportunities in the window within the next 2 years, because it's still 2 years before they actually come. So I think rather than it being that we've done this for you, we expect you to come to us. I think I did well. The decision that I made was based around solidarity and doing the right thing for the game. It certainly wasn't done to win favour and say, right, we've done it now, you need to do it. But I think that, I got asked a question on Sky Sports about, do I think that countries will tour? And I said, well, it shouldn't be a question of whether they should tour right now. It should be, why shouldn't they tour? Because Pakistan is as safe as anywhere. We've seen in Sri Lanka and New Zealand recently. We see what, catastrophes have happened at London Bridge, and the Ariana Grande concert in Manchester, around things are happening. There are good people, bad people everywhere. And we've been incident free for a period of time, and our security, Shane Watson recently said, having come for 5 weeks during the PSL, Pakistan is the safest place in the world at the moment to play cricket, and we certainly believe that that's true.
Mo Fraz is asking about advice you would give for any youngsters who are perhaps like yourself, not academic, but have got to face the challenges in life as well as the support parents can offer them.
Yeah, look, just my advice would be that, don't underestimate, education. There's always something that you can pick up. Try and work out what it is that you're good at. You rebel, you push back, you think it's cool to leave school without any qualifications because that's what your mates are doing. You think you're going to be all right hanging around street corners, those sorts of things. But ultimately, they don't help you in life. The best advice I can give is, fail as much as you can, do things, never be afraid of trying to do things. A lot of the time, our youngsters are reluctant to do things because they don't want rejection. They don't want setbacks because they don't have the self-confidence to deal with them. But, don't be afraid to do that. I've had them. And alhamdulillah, if I can get to where I've got to, kids in streets and inner city areas and around the country absolutely can live their dreams and do whatever they want to do.
Sajid's asking about the elite pathway. I assume he means in this country, and your thoughts on why we don't get greater Asian representation in county cricket and then moving further up the ladder into international cricket.
Yeah, look, it's still an issue here, and let's not beat about the bush and say, everything is now fine. You have county age group squads that are full of, a lot of Asian kids, South Asian kids, but the actual conversion rate is poor. And I think that, the ECB recently said that, there's still a huge amount of work that needs to be done around that. And more of our youngsters need to get given opportunities and need to come through. The system at the moment still is not supporting, the throughput of our youngsters coming through, particularly when some county age group squads are made up of 50, 60, 70%. And then we only see one or two of our Asian lads breaking through or representing a county over a 15-year period, for example. So, there's a huge amount of work that still needs to be done. And I know that the ECB are still conscious of it, but, the NACC, and I think it's really important here, Farouk, that I mention this, that, a lot of people will know Gulf in terms of the work that he does. He's someone who doesn't come in front. He doesn't want a limelight. I know that he'll be hiding behind a chair now because I'm saying it. But this guy has done a huge amount of work, and it's fair to say that the MCC tour to Pakistan would not have happened without the support of this guy running around trying to get people to help raise money. And let's not forget, the MCC tour happened because we were able to raise £20,000. We had sponsors who we were grateful for, who supported the tour, and Gulf ran around trying to make sure those things happen. Why did he do it? Because he wanted to see cricket come back to Pakistan as a nation. So these are the unsung heroes. These are the type of guys, and Sajid, these are the type of guys that are constantly meeting with counties, having dialogue with counties. The NACC is still doing a huge amount of work to try and ensure that the throughput moving forward is there. And, our youngsters are getting the opportunities they should get to represent their counties, having come through the system.
Sajid goes on to ask the same question about the elite pathway in Pakistan. Obviously, with a population of 220 million, should it not be that simply by proportional representation, we should be getting a lot more players coming through and sort of making their mark in international cricket?
I think the 6 high performance centres and the programs we have set up will make that our life a lot easier in terms of doing that. I think that previously you had the PCB who'd centralized everything. Nation of 220 million people. That system is never going to work. It's never going to happen. You're never going to find the youngsters, those diamonds who are going to come out of Kashmir or certain other areas. Nothing was ever going to happen by design. It was always by fluke or by chance. Suddenly a youngster, a Naseem Shah is found, or a Shaheen Shah Fridi is found somewhere, and then comes into our academy system as a finishing school. But we're putting a system in place where we're going to start identifying the kids from 13 upwards. So only the best players, not the ones whose parents are rich and can buy their way through the system, but actually kids who are actually good and talented can actually come through the system. And I think these are some of the things that we are actually fighting for, that we will absolutely make sure happens.
I mean, it has been a long-standing criticism of Pakistan cricket and its player development process, whereby a lot of nepotism and corruption and basically money talks, and a lot of talented players have sort of just fallen by the wayside and not even had the opportunity, whereas other less talented players, through who they know, have made it into the side, not on ability, but on who they know. And Nasser Mahmood sort of alludes to that point in his question.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And I think that, we've already groomed Babar with, the white ball captaincy. Leadership is something that we are trying to develop in our youngsters. We've had Rahel Nazir over in England with the squad for a period of time. He's a captain for our under-19s. We've got youngsters like Haider Ali. We've got Shadab Khan. These are our guys, Naseem Shah, Shaheen Afridi. So people need to remember where we're coming from. It's not going to change overnight. You don't break down systems and cultures that have been there for 40 years. But NASA, rest assured, we are all about now trying to get merit at the forefront of thinking. The types of people are brought in, good people who are actually all based around doing the right thing, selecting players who are talented, not because the parents can dish up some money or they can pay more than anybody else to get their kids through the system. They're the things that I want to eradicate. But I alone can't just do that overnight. It's going to take time, but you have to break the system and change it and build a new one. And that's certainly what we're working towards now. And we have been over the last 6 to 8 months.
To what extent, Wasim, are you sort of copying the grassroots model that exists in this country with junior county age group cricket, sort of from under nines now, kids playing the All Stars and moving on to the Dynamos now, because there really hasn't been a formalized structure in place with no real clubs in place and kids just playing on the street. And it has been successful to a point, but obviously a lot of talent is being missed there. And Shahid is asking, where are you going with grassroots cricket? Obviously, there's a lot of talk about these performance centres, but obviously right down there with that 4, 5, 6-year-old, how are you going to get them into the game?
What we've done is we've actually engaged a guy called David Parsons, who set up the high performance centre at the ECB. And, he was in charge when England got to #1 across all 3 formats. So he was there for 12 years. He's a consultant now. We've used him helping us recruit a high performance team. He's put a delivery framework together for us that's actually we're going to be imparting across the 6 cricket associations. And let's not forget is once those high performance centres are in place, the coaches are going into clubs and they're delivering programs at grassroots level. That's where the system will start to work, not the PCB centrally trying to deliver a program to 220 million people. It can't work that way. So in terms of what's going to be developed, the framework is now in place. It's been signed off. We had ex-players involved. We had coaches involved. It's been stress tested with all kinds of high performance people around the world in terms of could this potentially work. But it's important we've developed something for the Pakistan way, not the England way, not the system that works here, but use all the tools, all the good things we know that work here in Australia, New Zealand, in other countries. How can we adapt them to work in the Pakistan environment? Because we're very, very different. Where our system is very immature. We've still got a long way to go before we can mature that system. And we have to take baby steps to get there.
In the current sort of media savvy world that exists out there, and social media playing an integral part in everybody's lives, I mean, I've sort of seen from personal experience the huge contrast in the way that the England players conduct themselves to the media or to the spectators compared to the Pakistan players. What sort of lessons are you sort of giving to them in ways to handle themselves in front of media? And this is the sort of question that Nasser Mahmood again comes back on, which I think is a very, very poignant question, because you only have one opportunity to get that message across, and if it's put across poorly, then it creates a very, very negative impression of yourself as a player, the Pakistan team, and even of the country.
Nasser, I totally agree with you. I remember watching as a fan before I had this job, and I was working at Leicestershire and various other places, and thinking, well, how can you play international cricket for 15 years and and you still can't string a sentence together? There's so much downtime for players. So we've started those English lessons. Our guys, when they come to a high performance center in Lahore, this is part of how we now occupy their evenings. This is the work they do. They have lectures on social media. Our guys were still very naive in terms of how they use social media, but we've got strong guidelines. Our director of media and comms now was the former director of media and comms at the ICC, Sami Burni, who worked at the ICC for 11 years, has now come back to the PCB. So, the only way you change and you educate is by bringing people from the outside who come with a different perspective and a different level of professionalism. So all of these things are now starting to improve. So the questions I get asked, I say, yep, we're working on it. Because Nasser, as a fan, was asking the same questions I was asking as a fan. So if I don't put those things in place now, it's negligent of me.
Going back to Mr. Pakistan, who I'm sure you'll be familiar with, he's renowned all over the world for his outlandish attire. He's asking about any plans you have for the future for the spectators, any innovative ideas or any sort of schemes that you want to get the public in, really supporting the team, particularly during, I think, test matches, which obviously perhaps are not as popular as the white ball games.
Yeah, look, I mean, we did it in Rawalpindi, where my view is that you just open the stadiums for free and you let people in. Because look, the amount of money you're going to charge people to come in, you want them to come, but why put a barrier of putting a cost attached to it? So in Rawalpindi, when we had the test match against Sri Lanka and I think against Bangladesh, we had nearly 15 to 20,000 people turn up for each of the first 3 days. It was incredible. The atmosphere, the people there. We've got 13 million followers now on our social media. We've built that up. So we're engaging more so now. And I think Mr. Pakistan will also admit, and understand that, there's more things we do now. There's more interaction with players. We're revamping our website, which allows us to engage with fans more. We're developing an app as well, which will be available to all the fans. There'll be lots of things on there, lots of interviews, lots of ways, a lot of, suggestions. We'll have, suggestion boxes for fans to be able to come forward with ideas on how we can develop the fan engagement and what more we can be doing with the fans. But please rest assured that these are some of the things, and now we've got the right people at the PCB. Those people are now focusing on, ultimately it's about the fans. And I always talk about the fans. It's always about them, because they're the ones who have followed Pakistan through thick and thin over the, the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years, during tough times and good times. And, they always turn up and watch. So, you guys are massively important, and your support is always hugely appreciated.
You've got a couple of goodwill messages there. One from Paul Bedford, who's absolutely, very proud of what you're doing, and is asking you to keep up the good work. You're doing a fine job, Wasim.
Thank you, Paul, and great to hear from you. And it's not an easy topic. I think that, Paul, the only thing I will say is keep engaging with the NACC. I think the likes of the Gulf and these others, I know that you speak to them constantly, and the ECB are committed to engaging with them. These guys have got the pulse of what goes on, because they speak to the Parks cricketers, they speak to everybody else. And I think that, please listen to them, engage with them, and let them be your sales force out there. Their strategies will be the right strategies to engage. We all have ideas about what we think we should be doing. These guys are the experts who do know what needs to be done. And I know, Paul, you've always had an open mind to that. And, all power to you, and keep working with the NACC.
Asma has been absolutely inspired as a South Asian female coach in Birmingham, and by your interview, and obviously wishes you all the best.
Thanks, Asma. Keep doing what you're doing. We female coaches, we don't have enough of those in Pakistan at the moment. And it's great, the likes of Asma, who's working in Birmingham and doing her work. And, all power to you, all power to your family for allowing you to do that. Don't underestimate the role model status that you will have in trying to encourage more girls to want to become coaches. We all grow up with a passion. Dads, brothers are always passionate in the household. And initially you kind of get tagged along and you have to watch it. But, you guys have got a great love for cricket as much as your fathers and your brothers have got. So, do that. Work with your cricket board to set up, coaching courses or taster sessions for Asian girls in communities to say, look, hey, there is an opportunity to become a coach. You could go into, female schools around Birmingham and actually go in and coach and run after school sessions, get involved with Chance to Shine. So all power to you, Osman, and long may it continue.
Kay goes on the girls' cricket theme as well, and she hopes to see more girls' teams develop in Pakistan. And Kay herself is a big supporter of women and girls' cricket in the northwest of England.
Yeah, thanks, Kay. And it's probably synonymous of, I guess, the lack of value that Pakistan society has placed on women. And if you look at a lot of our teachings in Islam, it's all about the importance of the mother and the women in the family and the respect and value. So what I found was that the way that the female cricketers were treated was pretty much as second-rate citizens. And it was important that we change the perception of that, because if we lift those cricketers, make them feel valued, they will have a huge knock-on effect on everyone else's daughters and mothers and sisters, because we will see them, and we're trying to get them front-facing now with the media, getting front-facing in commercials, making sure they're getting paid for their time. So there's a huge amount of work that we've done, but it was important that the girls started to get paid better, and they started to travel like the men. The daily allowances have been increased, in twofold since I've been able to come in. All domestic cricketers get paid, and we're running talent programs now to get more girls playing cricket around Pakistan. So, it's a start for us. We've got a long way to go, but we are moving in the right direction with that. So thank you, Kay.
We've got a long question here from Samara Afzal. She's just basically asking about your resilience in the light of the attacks that you might get, through media, through social media. How do you manage to keep going despite all that unpleasantness that's directed towards you? And what advice would you give to others in a similar walk of life?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Samara. Look, there'll be many people on this call who have faced hard times over the last few months, and there'll be plenty of examples. And I get your question, and because there's a real emotional connection with that question. It's tough at times, but I think that you have to find an inner peace, and you have to find an inner place where you believe that there are still good people in this world, and you'll find 90% of the people will always be supportive, maybe 95, but the 5% will always get at you, and they'll always try to get at you. I think just put them in a place where they should be in your own mind. Don't worry too much about, I know it's easier said than done, but you can allow them to affect you, or you can actually control how you feel in terms of how they're making you feel. And there's a great quote that says, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. So, their job is to bring you down, make you feel inferior, insecure, but always remember it tells you more about them than what it tells about you. So stay strong and thinking in that particular way.
An interesting question from Amar Ghani. We've got a large sort of Pakistani contingent that obviously follow the fortunes of the team closely. And is there any way where we could get more access to watching Pakistan play around the world, even though we're actually living in England? And obviously, any broadcasting rights that could be established to give the large expat community the opportunity to watch these matches?
Yeah, look, we're just in the middle of selling our media rights for the next 3 years. And so the England territory, America, Canada, where there's a massive diaspora of Pakistani people, British Pakistanis, American Pakistanis, Canadian Pakistanis, there's a big diaspora in Scandinavia as well, in Germany. We are looking at every single platform now. So Amar, rest assured, this is something that we are developing. It's something called OTT, over the top platforms, which we're now developing it across other things, speaking to Netflix, speaking to others around how we can more broadly get cricket out there. Because I know that the diaspora in Pakistan, in England, miss out whenever Pakistan play, but that is going to change in the next few months with our plans.
Thank you, Wasim. There's a heap of questions still remaining. I'm going to call it a day there, because I've kept you going for the best part of an hour and a half, and I'm really, really conscious of the fact that you are on sort of holiday with your family, and I'm very, very grateful for the amount of time that you've given us this evening in your busy schedule.
Now, listen, Farouk, no problem at all. It's a real honor and a privilege to be on here. As I said, I know all the work that everybody who's on the shows, everybody's tuned in, will be a Pakistan fan, will be doing good in communities, trying to give something back. Look, guys, just keep doing it. Keep inspiring the next generation. I had one or two people who inspired me and gave me the opportunities and the resilience to go on and do great things. And you've got the ability to do that, so please do that.
Wasim, on behalf of all the viewers, myself, everyone at NACC, we want to wish you every success, and hopefully, we might see you back in this country again in the near future, and we could hook up with you again and catch up on the progress that you've been making with the PCB.
Anytime. Thank you, Farouk. Thank you very much.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you to all our viewers today, those of you watching on Facebook, YouTube, and to those of you on Link FM in Sheffield, across your social media platforms. It's been a real pleasure having Wasim on board and having your company. So do keep a lookout for our next guest live on Middle Stump. Until then, it's good night.